Welcome to Brand Stories panel discussion. Over the last decade or so, there's been some really amazing new age brands that have come up, and it'll be very interesting to talk to two of the founders of two such brands today, and talk about how not only had their journey in building those brands, but how those brands have evolved over these years, as well as over the last 18 months during this pandemic, and how that has perhaps changed their focus and flair in terms of how they are managing these their own brands. Now, brands, over the years, many different new brands have come up, and many of them are traditional over the years, as we can think back to our own lives and their impact on us. But the two founders that we have today are really building out some very, very interesting areas. Gaurav Manchanda, founder and managing director at the Nimida Group, the Organic World, which is one of the largest non-franchisee multi-brand organic store chains in South India. It now plans to expand its network to 10 new stores in Bangalore and other southern states by the summer of 2022. We also have with us Suhasini Sampath, co-founder and chief operating officer of Yoga Bars. Launched in 2014, healthy snack startup Yoga Bar has seen a solid growth amidst the pandemic as people increasingly focused on good health. The startup, which claims to have tripled its revenues in FY21, aims to become a 100 crore brand by FY22. So welcome to both of you, Gaurav and Suhasini.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you for having me.
Great. Happy to be here.
Welcome again. Just a quick housekeeping note to audience. I would also like to announce that something special for our audience here. Please do tweet your key takeaways from the session with the hashtag Converge at Walmart. There are exciting prizes for all of you to participate in, and a few lucky tweets will win them. So to start off, what I would like to start with each Gaurav and Suhasini about their own personal journeys. What led to these new to their organizations that they've created. Each of them has got a fantastic background and I'm sure a very, very interesting story to tell how their brands came about. Gaurav, why don't we start with you and the Organic World?
Sure. So I'm just kind of going back a couple of years. I mean, I pretty much spent all my life in Bangalore, except for a couple of years that I spent in Boston and New York. I spent some time there studying in Boston. I spent some time working in New York City. And in New York City, I mean, you're pretty much spoiled for choices when it comes to consumer brands, retailers, just products around you, right? And there's some fantastic brands around there. So when I spent my time there, I mean, I was having access to somewhat differentiated brands and somewhat differentiated retailers and products was not very hard to come by, right? And during my time there, I spent and had a chance to get to know many of these brands, and of course out of habit, built a certain kind of habit for consumption from some of these brands, some of these retailers, right? Whether it was choice of organic foods or natural foods or just better choices, right? I mean, there was certainly a lot of choices out there. Now, sometime around 2015, 16, I actually came back to Bangalore, and of course, I mean, while there were many upcoming new age brands that were coming up that were starting to provide somewhat differentiated offerings and differentiated brands and differentiated products to consumers. What I did notice, I mean, there was certainly a lack of a platform to actually present these new upcoming brands and new upcoming products. So in a sense, that was the genesis to the Organic World. And Organic World is currently is a retailer with 10 stores in Bangalore. We've been able to build out about 10 stores over the last 3 to 4 years. And what Organic World does is the general premise of the Organic World as a retailer is to be able to provide better choices to consumers. And when it comes to better choices, it's about better choices of consumption habits, better choices in groceries, better choices in staples, better choices in dairies, and your daily consumption, right? And a lot of this had to do with a simple hypothesis to say that, in general, people's consumption is compromised. right? And it was with this hypothesis and a simple I think trigger to say we need to present a platform to be able to give these various new upcoming products to consumers that the organic world was in a sense had kicked off and started off, right? Now, over the years, we've had certainly a fantastic and interesting journey. And there have been a lot of market changes, a lot of market movements, a lot of events, as we've seen over the last a year and a half. So it's been an interesting journey so far, and it's only further, I think, has added a lot more conviction to what we're doing, in terms of customer feedback, in terms of what we're seeing on the ground. And in fact, we are now, expanding our way forward and looking to expand across South India over the next year by increasing another 10 stores. And I must add, it's not only a play with retail stores, but it's certainly also an online play. And we have a significant presence online as well that not only reaches out to the Bangalore and South Indian market, but now to the Pan India and various cities across India. So overall, I mean, so far it's been an exciting journey, and I look forward to as we go forward with expansion plans.
Great, good to hear, Gaurav. Is there a particular segment of the audience that you go after in terms of your core customers, or is it a fairly wide range of people who visit your stores or online?
Right. So the customers that we typically tackle and I'd say would be our target customers are certainly customers that are a lot more conscious about their well-being, a lot more conscious about their lifestyle, whether it's passive consumption or active consumption or passive and active lifestyles. It's about well-being and watching your consumption, right? Now, whether it's through our organic offering or whether it's through offerings that don't necessarily have a lot of additives or pesticides or a lot of other products, a lot of additives in the products. It is that element of being watchful about your consumption, where we go after certain customers and we go after certain consumers that believe that what their consumption, their consumption is key to their well-being. Mm-hmm. Right. So it typically ends up being certainly a lot more discerning customers, a lot more customers that are well aware of what the benefits of organic foods are, what the benefits of somewhat clean eating is, which tend to be certain customers within the age, I'd say, within the age group of about 25 to 45. They're a lot more accepting to our offering, a lot more accepting to the various options that we present on our platforms and in our stores and our online store, and it's typically these customers that we pursue.
Got it. Thank you, Gaurav. So, Suhasini, over to you. Love to hear about the genesis of the Yoga Bar brand and its journey to date, and probably the same question that I asked Gaurav about who do you see as your core audience and for your products.
Sure. I think for us, very similar story to Gaurav. I've been in Bangalore all my life, and I went to LBS to do my MBA. And at that point of time, I also did an exchange at Wharton, at which point of time I was staying with my sister in New York. And, when the two of us used to go to like the yoga class at the Flatiron building, and we used to walk over to Whole Foods opposite the Flatiron building, and we looked at the brands there and we said, hold on a minute, there are so many brands in the US which are ingredient first, which are health food based, and we have none of that in India. We have such a large population, and most of the food products and snacks out of home consumption at that point of time was, very unhealthy choices. And we did know that Indians had like a diabetes problem. Indians, and food companies were not taking the kind of responsibility in terms of the kind of ingredients they were using to create their products. So Anandita came up with the name Yoga Bar, and I said, listen, we should trademark it even before we started the company. So that happened 3 years before we actually launched the brand. I came to India a bit earlier, and when I used to speak to retailers, they're like, India mein health nahi bikta hai, taste hi bikta hai. And we got to hear that store after store. So, we worked with a couple of people to sort of put a range of bars together and sample this out in a couple of yoga studios. And the response was fantastic. People kept asking for more. And it started there actually in a really small, bakery. My mother used to help us wrap these bars, and we used to make everything at home, and we started, in a very very small way. And we're lucky to see that health foods exploded. We being the first ones, had the benefit of almost zero marketing to get to the point where we got to. Like even today, like the customer care number at the back of a yoga bar is my number. So we literally have like no marketing, right? And purely by strength of product and being the first one to see that health eventually became India May, we've got to where we've got. And we're now close to being 100 crore brand. I think that's the revenue we'll record this year, and it's purely been by strength of product and the fact that today India is a bit more health conscious. We cater to a wide range of society, right? Like, so for instance, we have oats products, we have muesli, we have the bars, and we try to make our products affordable. Like, so our hypothesis is we'll give you a 80% better quality product for 20% premium in price. Today, like some of the health that buys our product, and for me, that's what's exciting, right? Like when somebody who comes to your house to help you, like your domestic help, tells you that they want the products because they want their family to eat better, that's when that brings a smile on my face, because I feel health should be affordable. And I think we want to move to that point where we're able to bring different kind of products to serve nutrition requirements. Any out-of-home consumption, we want to be the healthiest food company out of home consumption. So yeah, that's our dream.
Got it. Thank you. Suhasini, have you seen a change in behavior over the last 18 months? Have you seen a lot more people now getting, reading the back of the packaging to understand what they're ingesting to a large extent?
I would say yes. I would say the pandemic's done two things. It's also brought into focus a lot of digital first brands who are very, very strong with marketing and messaging. So I would say that's one contributing factor. But people have also become increasingly health conscious. I would say both factors have actually contributed to, the increase in sort of health consumption. I would also say that because your mainstream advertising is now going to be the Facebook and Googles of the world, the number of people you're reaching at a subsidized cost is much more easier. So for instance, if I had to run an ATL or BTL campaign, it requires me to but to sort of allocate about a really large marketing budget upfront. But what the pandemic's helped you do, and in the initial days of the pandemic, Facebook and Google became very optimized in terms of advertising spend. And that really skyrocketed sales for a lot of D2C brands. And we saw some benefit of that as well. So I would say it's become easier than ever to create companies and to sort of market, but it's become very difficult to build brands because a lot of people are saying the same thing. So to stand to take a position different from everybody else and to be recognized for that is very hard.
That's a good point. Thank you. Thanks for making that. Gaurav, back to you. Pandemic. What have you seen as, you're running offline stores, people can't walk in and buy what they need. I know you have an online platform. Have you seen any kind of changes during, initiated by the pandemic, like similar to what Suhasini was kind of recounting for her brand?
No, absolutely. I mean, the pandemic has really changed habits and changed, consumption patterns, right? I mean, I'd say, as the pandemic kicked in, we certainly saw, a surge in demand when it came to, healthier foods and organic foods. And I think now on everyone's mind and what they ask for is immunity boosters or immunity, foods, right? Where people can, in a sense, fend off, I'd say, any sort of, I'd say things like falling sick or, getting a cold, right? So they've certainly been asking for foods that, help increase immunity, right? But also from a shopping habit perspective, right? I mean, we play in both the offline space as well as the online space. While we are an essential business and we haven't truly shut a single day over the last year and a half, during the pandemic, but we have seen a significant amount of customers now, certainly change their shopping patterns of people that have not shopped previously online and started to kind of move their consumption and move their shopping online. So we've seen the same customers that, pretty much just walk into the store on a regular basis have started to shop now online on a regular basis, right? So that has not only, in a sense, changed our adaptability in terms of how we respond to customers, but I think this has been a common theme across the industry, right? It's been a common theme across when it comes to consumer businesses. There are certain businesses, of course, that have not had the luxury of staying open during the last few months during the early days of the pandemic, but even those businesses, consumer businesses, certainly had to really speed up their digitization process, have really had to speed up their ability to reach out to consumers directly, whether it's from a D2C perspective or figuring out other channels to be discovered as well as then fulfill with the customers, right? So it's certainly been a change of pattern and habit, both from a shopping and consumption standpoint from consumers, as well as the brands themselves have had to finally adapt to what the consumers have have asked for and wanted.
Sure. But Gaurav, just to touch upon the point that Suhasini also made, standing out in this crowded environment. I mean, suddenly everybody's online, everybody's pitching themselves. Have you changed the way you present the brand, how you build loyalty for the brand, using technology a lot more at its core compared to maybe even 24 months ago, compared to when you got started?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, right now the world is a place where people are a lot more aware, whether it's social, political, or environmental, right? I mean, whether it's topics of climate change and the global economy, etc. Right? So everything is real time right now. People are starting to latch on to what's happening real time, and not only in India but across various other countries, right? So when there's a barrage of information with trending topics and viral buzz, consumers are also searching for meaning of authenticity, right? And authenticity is key. I mean, there are a large number of studies that also show that consumers have started to shop for brands and businesses that more align with their purpose, that more align with their values. Now, that purpose and values could be health, or it could be wellness, or it could be various other factors, right? But consumers themselves have started to shift more towards brands and businesses that have started to align with their values, right? Now, overall, this has a profound impact on businesses, that have looking to adapt to the new now, right? Looking to adapt to the digitization process, are looking to adapt to now being standing out from I'd say a busy market of brands or a busy market of marketing, right? As Suhasini pointed out, I mean, right now it's amongst the easiest times to be able to, in a sense, market, get out there in front of customers, and present yourselves, whether it's to social media, whether it's to Google, whether it's to various other platforms and other channels. I mean, it's much easier right now. But to now stand out amongst these brands, it has to be something a little bit more than that, a little bit more than just marketing, right? And that's the elements of being able to connect with consumers at a more personal level, from either a values perspective or purpose or even authenticity. Right, so it's these nuances and these elements that are starting to change the communications of brands. Is able to now change the communication of how do you stand out in a crowded market sense.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Gaurav. So, Hasni, coming back to you, we're talking about technology on the front end with consumers and reaching consumers, advertising, even fulfilling. Those are one side to it. How much do you use technology to run the rest of your business? I mean, is that something that you think about on a day-to-day basis in terms of running your own efficiency of the organization overall using technology?
To give you a perspective of that, there's a small data point that I should kind of highlight, right? We went from a 70% offline, 30% online company to a 90% online, 10% offline company. So to mark that change in distribution, right, it's a paradigm shift in the way the entire company functions, both from how you measure efficiency of your marketing spend, how do you measure your efficiency of operations, what is your tag times on delivery, how you make sure that your online deliveries happen on time. You can't miss an order. Like online channels are driven by very strong SLAs. So you have to design processes to sort of match to the distribution system that you are catering to. So to answer to that question, just that paradigm shift in the way our online and offline revenues moved, we had to set up a lot of background, software and ERP systems to sort of manage the entire order processing, order dispatch, and order raw material consolidation, etc. So yes, we have to make technology transitions as our distribution models change. Luckily for us, and we're lucky that the offline markets picked up again and we are back to where we were. But I think the pandemic forced us to do things in a much more efficient way. So now, of course, we are back to Gaurav stores. We are back in organic world. We're hedging again. In all of our offline. So the beauty of offline is that when the business comes up, it's 0 to 70% in a matter of 1 month. You can't grow online like that. So we love offline businesses, and we're back to doing that. But it's forced the business to be really tactical and sort of. The things that you never focused on, you use technology to sort of lay really strong SLAs and processes. So we've used technology to do that.
Got it. So even when you come back to, let's say a balance between offline and online, the efficiencies that that technology has brought to you on your operations will probably continue to benefit you over time.
Yes. Yes, we are back to completely in the offline 70% and online only 30% mode already. But that efficiency in process has really helped us.
But has that let you reach audiences in a wider way? I mean, in the sense that, when you were 70% offline before the pandemic and 30% online, you had probably a certain type of clientele was coming to you. But I would imagine the overall pie of customers has also increased because the reach of you being 70% online at one point would have let you reach a whole wider range of audiences, like, for example, beyond Bangalore or even this part of the region. Quite a bit more effectively. You would see that audience staying with you as you come back to the older way of operating or the mixed shift.
We've been lucky, to be honest, because we are the oldest brand when it comes to health food. There is a certain level of trust in the way we do things. We are not a marketing first company, we're a product first company, and it's always been an ingredient story with us. We've seen it happen. Like once the offlines come back, our offtakes are exactly the way it was. The only time our sales get impacted is when the stores shut, and we'd already set up the whole 10,000 store, 26 cities distribution model much before the pandemic. What the pandemic ended up doing was you have the burden of the offline cost that can't be offloaded because the offline sales offtake is not happening. And of course, we put people first. So you have an entire team sitting that you can't really generate revenue out of. And the business has grown. We've been growing 100% year on year, and that acceleration has happened because of efficiency in process. But for us, offline is a very large part of our growth story, and it will continue to always be because India is definitely a market where offline is very, very important. Like the neighborhood store is really important to the Indian consumer. Yeah.
Right. So Gaurav, coming back to you on the same question, right? How did you have to shift the operational side of your business on the back end, the fulfillment, inventory management, all of that? I assume that you use a lot of tech there, but did that go up, come down, stay the same, etc. Over the last few years?
Right. So over the last 2 years, let's say, I think we've only been able to strengthen our positioning in a sense that as the demand and as there's been a spike in demand for better for you products, better choices out there, or healthier products, right? We've been growing at quite a significant and fast pace since, and even now since the pandemic, right? Now that only means that we've further had to strengthen our distribution. I mean, we've only gone and expanded in our own products. We actually have a range of products called Wellbe Foods, and even Wellbe Foods hypothesis is very similar, where it's better choices, better food products that we now have distributed across various new channels and new cities, right? Now, when it comes to retail, I mean, our stores haven't been shut, so we've only had a status quo in terms of keeping our operations going. But there has been also a significant focus and a shift to our digital channels because we've seen significant spikes when it comes to our online channels. Now, as we grow our numbers and as we grow our revenues through the online channels, we've certainly started to use data in a lot more effective ways to truly understand who our customers are. See, at the end of it, we believe that, since we, I'd say somewhat of a differentiated retail and a differentiated business when it comes to, health and well-being, a lot of our customers, tend to shop with, a bit of, value and purpose, right? When it comes to value and purpose, it's sometimes about health and well-being, as well as, from some elements of even environmental well-being, right? Because we tend to use lesser plastics, or we recycle within our stores, etc. Right? So when it comes to shoppers that shop with purpose and value, we certainly also have to adapt our digital capabilities to truly understand the customer a lot better. What do they truly care about? How can a brand be relevant in certain moments that matter, such as moments such as a healthcare crisis, for example, right? How do our values align with certain consumer values? And answering all these questions and truly getting to know the customers, we then have to kind of shift to the data, right? So now, as brands tap into data and the power of data, we can truly effectively find out, what do customers, what is their beliefs, what is their attitudes, what's their perspectives, what are their principles, what are their habits, and what are their needs, and what are finally the problems of the customers that we're trying to tackle upon, right? Mm-hmm. Now, as we look through this data, it gives us the ability to further personalize, our approach to each of these customer bases based on, their habits and their, their beliefs and, even their perspectives and principles, right? And this element of personalization is certainly key to what we're doing, whether it's sending very personalized messages or sending very personalized communication to certain cohorts of customers. Data is truly allowed for that play, right? But it doesn't just stop there, right? I think there's certainly a much larger play, right? When we look at digital tools and we look at the ways we can actually kind of shift through data, there are various opportunities for that, right? Social media being, one of the biggest channels, where social media gives us the ability to truly understand the customers. What do they engage with? What post is interesting to people, and what truly triggers people, right? So in a sense, that helps us understand our consumers better, right? Then there are elements of, the experience that we can provide online, whether it's through the app or whether it's through our website. There's, enough and more data to understand, through UI UX tools to say, hey, people are really engaged with a certain section of the app or really engaged with a certain section of our website, which helps us better further understand our customers, right? Then third, you could look at, using data for conversion rates, right? Now conversion rates also tell us more about the consumers, and there's certainly a lot of tools when it comes to conversion rate optimization, or trying to understand really what triggers a consumer to finally go out and check out from a basket, right? And similarly, also, we can certainly use data to optimize on improving loyalty, personalizing messages a lot more, tracking competition, using data to collaborate, and so on and so forth, right? So there's certainly many opportunities to be able to use data and further, start, personalizing our approach to each of these customer cohorts.
Got it. Thank you. That's very detailed. Gaurav, one question. In the organic world, is provenance an issue? Do you have to kind of justify the ingredients that go into your, or maybe, if you're OEMing others' products is one thing, but if you have your own products, we keep one of the uses of blockchain that was cited in the past is provenance of ingredients from farm to the shelf. Do you look at those kinds of things at all, or is that something that's of interest?
No, absolutely, Ram. So as we started our journey, right, we actually started our journey on three pillars. We started our journey on, really solving the problems for accessibility, affordability, and authenticity. And I think the topic that you're really, I think, calling out is the authenticity bit, right? So there's certainly an element of education. There's certainly an element of, having to explain to customers, because now these are far more well-educated, far more discerning customers, or customers that are sitting on the fence that do want to, if they were not consuming organic before, or consuming, better choice products, healthier products, what really takes them to the next stage, right? So there's certainly an element of education, educating customers to what products within their food items are good for them. And there's also an element of, building trust, right? And building the element of authenticity. Now we have been working on areas such as blockchain and adding the element of traceability to say hey, this grain, this packaged grain comes from this location or this farm, and these are the certifications and these are the lab tests to go along with it. Right. So it's certainly being more transparent in the process, sharing information, and when people have questions, to be able to then back those questions with data and facts. Right. So we have been certainly using digital tools to be able to build on these elements of authenticity, build on these elements of transparency, and build on the elements of traceability.
Got it. This is great. Thank you. I think that is really very clear in terms of how technology is playing a big role for you, from the consumer facing part all the way through your supply chain management and inventory management, all the way out to your back end. Very, very good. One last question to both of you, in terms of, if you were to advise somebody who wants to start their brand journey now, are there learnings from your individual journeys that you would give them an advice around as to how they would need to go about it, how they should go about it? So Suhasini, why don't we start with you and then we'll go to Gaurav.
I think one has to look at the larger purpose of why you're building a business. And that's what would really motivate you when you go to sleep at night. You have to have a personal story that's really large to have to motivate you to go through the kind of hardships that entrepreneurship will put you through. For me, it was that I wanted to be recognized as somebody who brought health food in India, and in some ways, I know that every single MNC in the country has a yoga bar product and they aspire to be as good as a yoga bar product. And we've managed to hold a lot of people accountable in the way they do their labels. And that makes me feel like the hard work's paid off, right? And I think that there are tremendous amounts of difficulties that no one talks about. There are several times when you feel like your life's work and the things that you put a lot of hard work on have not come to anything, because there'll be shutdown points in everybody's business. And I think at those points in time, you have to think about that larger purpose. So I have only one message, actually. I think if you keep sight of that larger purpose, it'll take you through the times when things are not going as well, and things will not go as well, as is the case with everything. There are going to be ups and downs, and the things that will hold you really strong during those points of time when things go really bad is that larger purpose that you're looking to build.
Great, thank you. Gaurav?
So Ram, as we discussed, it is certainly a crowded market, right? There are many brands now that are leveraging digital tools to get out there, build their messaging, build their marketing, and now consumers have more choice than ever before, right? In terms of brands, approaching customers, whether it's to the offline channels of the stores or whether it's the online channels, right? So certainly consumers are spoiled for choice, right? And I think the key message I could have for upcoming brands is, how do you differentiate with existing brands in the market? Is certainly, in my belief, is to align around values to build trust with your consumers. In the basic sense, it truly starts with consumers. It starts with the people that would use your product, right? It sounds simplistic, but it's essentially the responsibility of every business to deliver what a consumer wants, right? Now, given that consumer habits and expectations are changing fast, people will continue to make decisions based on things like the price, convenience, how fast things are delivered to them. But that's no more a differentiator, right? Because many businesses are finally competing on the same elements of price and delivery times and how fast I can get to consumers. And at the end of it, how nice I could make my website and app look, right? While these are differentiators, these differentiators will soon be passed with other factors, right? So the evolution of the next brand is in my view certainly trust and purpose driven, and it's not just a feel good story, right? It's certainly being able to align with customers and their values. So it's not just a feel good story, but it is a compelling business strategy at the end of it. Through data, through various data, through various data points, we certainly see that more responsible businesses and businesses that align in elements of trust and value will also have a far more stronger financial performance and a far more stronger connect with customers, which will then drive for the business, right? So brands that with consistently high economics, social and governance responsibility performances will typically beat, and differentiate amongst their peers in a crowded market.
Great. Thank you, Gaurav. I think there's a common message here, if I may paraphrase. One, have a pretty strong purpose, because that's what will stick with you as you go through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and the business. And both of you are testament, of having done that. Second is make sure that you're building a very strong trust with your customers. And I think, they will stay with you through the good times and the bad times, just based on the fact that they value that the trust that they've built in your brand, in your offerings, et cetera, et cetera. And that also allows you to actually scale your business over time, right? And the third thing is, nowadays with reach becoming a lot more technology driven, the generations of people are getting more comfortable with technology and using technology to discover brands. Figure out a good mechanism, not only to position yourself in the market well through technology, but also use data effectively to keep that engagement going over time as these things shift, and be able to position yourself more effectively as opposed to your competition. And then last but not least, of course, think about the efficiencies of your backend systems, your supply chains, your delivery mechanisms, and all of that, and use that more effectively to help grow the business and also keep your costs in check as your business scales over time. I want to thank both of you. And of course, and on a lighter note, it seems like you have to go to New York City and spend time there if you're going to build the next generation D2C brand, because both of you had New York in your storyline. And I'm just joking, but maybe they'll have to come spend time with both of you to actually, in the next phase of entrepreneurs, will start off saying, look, I went and experienced Organic World, I experienced Yoga Bar, and that became my motivation to start my next business. And I hope that's the case that happens as we see more and more of new generation brands coming up. Thank you again, and very enlightening discussion. I wish we could have gone longer, but I think we are running out of time. And a note to the audience: thank you again for tuning in. I hope you got good dose of positive takeaways from both Suhasini and Gaurav. Please do tweet your key takeaways from the session with the hashtag Converge at Walmart. As I said in the beginning, there are exciting prizes remaining for all of you for the few lucky tweets that get selected. Thank you again, and goodbye.